next step now is, after getting all our pieces nicely trimmed up, sanded to a nice as fitting as we can get, what we want to do now is we want to clean it up now, because what the problem is when it comes with resin, you get like a mold release agent on there, and it's like a greasy sort of mold release agent on there. So then when we come along and do any spraying, it's just going to kind of go all nasty. It's going to be like water to oil. So we want to make sure it's all nicely cleaned up. Simply what I've got here is a little pot of water with just some normal washing up liquid, and we simply put in our resin into these pots, and we can leave them to soak. We can get a toothbrush like this and just clean in and around as much in the inside and just get them all nice and clean, and that should remove all the mold release agents. As I say, you can leave them even there for a bit or just clean them, but once you've done with cleaning them, what you want to do is you need to make sure they dry. So maybe another kitchen paper towel, and we just maybe leave the resin pieces on our kitchen paper towel and let the paper towel soak up all that moisture. Just let the paper towel do the work rather than us, but you do need to make sure it is nice and dry for when you do, say, prime these up. So I'm just going to clean all these now. With all our pieces now all nice and clean and all ready, what we want to do, I want to start off by looking at our exhaust. Now, when it comes to resin, it's very, very important that we test fit, and we need to make sure these things are going to fit, because my experience when it comes to resin is they never totally 100% fit, although these Eduard ones look like they are. So what we want to do, we want to start off with the exhaust, and what you'll notice, if we bring it together, what the instructions want us to do is it wants us to actually put the exhaust in, glue it into place like so, and then bring the two halves together. Right, now the problem is with this is because the exhaust is all inside there and everything, we want to kind of spray it all first and get it all done before we actually put it in there. However, the problem is with this exhaust is, if we just have a little look here, what's going to happen is when we actually glue the two fuselages together, because this exhaust kind of goes into the fuselage so much, we're going to end up with a little bit of a seam line just there. You're going to be able to see it, and if we spray this all, say, like a nice aluminium colour, when we glue that together, not only are we going to have a bit of a join line, but the actual glue is going to leave a bit of a glue mark in there as well when we join them together. So ideally what we want to do is actually glue this first, then spray it, but then that poses problems. So the lucky thing is with this one is we've got this big bit at the back, so what we can potentially do, right, so we just get that out a second, what we can potentially do is we can bring these two fuselage halves together, glue it, spray it, get it all kind of nicely sanded, done all nice and seamless, and then we can simply, just at the back of here, pop our little exhaust in there. So basically what that means is, let's put the exhaust safely away. I've got like a little pot just off camera. I'm just going to throw it over there, and then when we come round to doing our spraying and all that kind of stuff, and once we've got this all together, got it all seamless, we'll look into that later. So nice little tip there, don't just go off and glue that in there, because it's going to look a little bit naff with those seam lines. So the next thing we want to do is our cockpit section, right? We want to make sure our cockpit section fits right. So here's a little bit of a tip. We've basically sanded the bottom off there. Now it does fit rather well, but not totally 100%. Now you might find it a little bit fiddly to bring the two halves together to kind of see, how it actually fits. So nice little tip, we can just use a little peg. It holds our nice resin cockpit in there nicely enough for us to come together and actually bring our two fuselage halves together, remove the peg, and we can actually see how well is this going to fit? Now it does actually say in the instructions, just find them very quickly, it does actually show in the instructions where it shows red is where you need to like remove stuff. And in this case there's like a little red line just at the top of there. We've got to sand that back, and it actually says that in the instructions. I've done the one side and it does work very well, but as you can see it's just kind of being pushed out just that little bit, so we want to get that sanded. But that does fit rather nice. And not only that, I mean, I've gone off and I've even all these little pieces on here, a little bit of a back bit here, I've gone off on and sort of, you know, made sure it fits and everything. I've even gone along and I've sort of you know, placed these on, and then I've put a little bit on here. I've just made sure everything is going to fit nice, and that's what you want to do. You really, when it comes to resin, it's test fit everything, don't do any gluing, and just make sure everything is going to fit. So now that I know everything's going to fit, I know that I've marked on here where I need to tidy up. As you can see, I've got out our little red pen here, and as you can see we have that little bit we need to just sand here. We've got a little ejector pin mark here as well in our bit of a wheel well. And also we've got another ejector pin mark just here, which is just slightly going to show in the exhaust area, so we want to sand them back. Now just to quickly show you how to sand them back, what we want to do, we want to get out our skinny sticks and we just want to start to sand them back. Now I'm coming in with a nice coarse skinny stick, and I'm coming with a nice coarse one because we just want to get this little bit of a lip just nicely sanded up. Right, so you basically just want to sand it until we've sanded this little lip smoothly to sort of like the rest of the flat surface we got here. This is just so as our bit of resin can nicely fit in there. Right, so I'm just gonna quickly sand this back. But then what we want to do, once we've got it basically down and flat, which this basically almost is, what we want to do is we want to then start working our way through, turning this skinny stick over, and we get a bit of a finer sort of like a medium grit skinny stick then. So that way we can slowly start the process of smoothing it back out, because when we use the big coarse it's going to leave nasty scratches. We can come down to say we can come down to probably like the green skinny stick. It's a nice sort of fine skinny stick going on there, and this should start to kind of smooth it off, get rid of the scratches, so that when we spray on top of it, you know, we've removed that little bit of a lip so the resin fits and it all still looks nice and smooth, and that's quite good there. Then we can come in with our other skinny stick, which is the one that's a nice fine sanding grip, followed by a nice sort of polishing up one, and we can just give a little bit of moisture as well to this one just to help it along. Just like so, and then we can probably come in with our little bit of a polisher. Right, and that should nicely pretty much get that to a nice sort of level. It's going to look a little bit matte, a little bit dull, but when we put some paint on there that should look alright. But what we want to do is, obviously we've done some sanding, we want to make sure this is going to now fit better, which, looking at it, it's looking you know, a lot nicer now. Maybe a tiny little bit more of a sand just at the back here, just to kind of get that a bit down, but you know, it's now nicely fitting, and that's what we want. So I'm just going to get rid of a little bit of a touch up there, get rid of these ejector pin marks, and then we're probably all good for kind of looking at sort of doing some more resin stuff, getting on with some spraying and that. what I want to do now, we want to look at our nose section. It wants us to put a weight in there. Now, to simply get a nice bit of weight in there, what we're going to do is, I like to use just some pellets, nice simple, they're nice lead, so they've got some nice weight to them. I know you can go off and buy these expensive little proper modelling stuff where they're tiny little balls. Basically it's the same thing, and we simply just throw as many as we can put in here, just like so. Right, and then what we're going to do is put that there. We're just going to get our, I'm just going to be using some Zappa Gap medium CA glue, nice glue, cheaper than going off and buying the cheap 99p ones. Also, I'm just finding my drill. Here it is, my drill bit. What I like to do as well is, if you've ever kind of got a bit of a blockage, I like to just drill in with a drill, and it just gets that all nicely unblocked. And then I should have a lighter in my little tray here, and we can simply just burn that off. Right, and that's all good to carry on drilling as normal. So what we're going to do, we're just going to pour in here, a nice bit of glue, just like so, and that should keep all that nicely glued in there. You can go off and maybe use some Kicker or Vital Bond or something, but really we're not going to come round to this anytime soon, so we can just leave this to dry naturally. Whatever you can find to just keep it upright, as you can see just there. Also, what I've also done is this little piece here, the instructions that you get with the resin, wants us to cut this piece off, which, as you can see, I've already just cut it off. It then wants us to actually glue our styrene plastic piece actually onto our resin cockpit. If you do some test fitting, like I say, always test fit, you'll find that actually it's better just to actually glue our wheel well here actually onto the model, just to make sure you get a better fit with our styrene plastic part and our resin cockpit. So it's best just to glue them separately, not glue them together. What we also want to do is, there are these two little pieces, we want to get these in as well. Right, this is why you need to kind of study the instructions to make sure that you put in the plastic pieces in that you need to put plastic in, and you put in the resin that needs to be resin. Okay, so we just want to get that glued in. I'm going to be using Tamiya extra thin cement. It's a nice glue that will basically, what it does is, if we just put it on, what happens is it plain and simply, it's got such a good capillary action, it's thinner than water. It literally kind of sucks in underneath the piece, and what it does, it melts the two pieces of plastic together. It doesn't bond them together, it melts the two pieces of plastic together, which is really good for styrene plastic. But when it comes round to actually gluing resin, it doesn't work with resin. It just will not touch resin, right? So what we need for that is, well, in this one little case here, we're just going to be using a bit of our super glue, our CA, medium CA glue. Just going to pour a bit on our palette here. Nice little blob there, nice and easily controlled. And then, just so we get the right amounts of super glue, we're going to use a little cocktail stick. We can just sort of like bend the end just to make it a bit sort of a bit bendy there, just to help the super glue go onto our cocktail stick a bit better. And I'm just going to glue on a little bit here, so I'm just going to dip into our bit of glue wherever that's gone. There it is. Dip into our bit of glue here, and then in this little circle here, we're just going to try and get a nice little bit super glue just in there, just like that. Just get some tweezers, and what we want to do now is just nicely place this little piece here into that little hole and get it glued in, just like that, and we're just going to maneuver it correctly. And there you go, that is nicely glued into place. There is other bits as well that we want to kind of glue now. There's these 3 pieces of resin that we've glued onto our resin ejector seat here. I've glued them on because, let's face it, they're going to be all the same colour anyway, so rather than having lots of little pieces and spraying them separately and gluing them all together, if they're the same colour, glue them on together. I've also gone off and I've done stuff like getting cocktail sticks, pushing them through maybe any holes you have, or you can even go off and get like a 1mm drill bit, just like I am with this bit of resin, and we can just simply drill in a nice hole just here. Try not to go too far, but make sure you got a bit of a hole going on here. And what we can do, get another cocktail stick, see if it fits. Doesn't quite fit sometimes, so what we can simply do sometimes when it doesn't fit, we can either drill a bit more of a hole, or we can just cut a little bit off the end, and maybe that'll fit now, which it does, as you can see. And then nice little bit of polystyrene, we can stick it in there nicely off camera, as you can see, nicely on there. We've even got some bits of blue tack on the side that ain't going to be sprayed. Some of them, like our joystick here, I've actually left on there, as you can see, so we can cut that off. Basically all this is just nicely prepping it, getting it ready for the actual spraying stage, which really I think we're going to start off with doing a nice bit of primer first. Now we come to priming up, and when it comes to priming, you want some good primer down for all your paints that you're going to spray on in the future. Now, a good primer that I always use and always recommend is Vallejo's surface primer, which is a polyurethane type paint. Very nice. It's always had this downside of it needs 24 hours to dry. If you don't let it dry and you do any kind of sanding, it peels and doesn't sand away. So what I like to do is do a 50-50 mix of Future and surface primer by Vallejo, and it basically it locks it in, dries it quicker, and you can pretty much sand away as normal, after maybe 30 minutes to an hour. There is a product review on using surface primer on the Genesis Models website, so if you want to go check that out, you can get more into it. But basically we've got our pressure at about the 20% psi, and I'm just very lightly spraying on a very sort of misty coat to the point where you can almost not quite see it go down onto our half of our fuselage section here. This is just to give our following coats of paint something to stick to. Whenever you do any kind of spraying, do that nice light misty coat first. It dries really quickly, but it just gives us, that's something to stick to, because paint likes to stick to itself, and with that misty coat it's going to give us that. And because it dries really quick, I'm just cutting to wear now, and I can just come in straight away and give ourselves our first normal light coat. Right, we don't want this pooling up. Right, we don't want it really sort of looking wet. We just want to put that nice little bit down, and that's just nice, a nice light coat going on there. We want to let that dry, so let's put it aside and pick up another piece, and you just keep on putting those nice light coats down until it's all a uniform colour. Right then, the first thing we want to do now is we want to get out some Eduard airframe aluminium, and that's the ALC119. Really nice colour this one is. It's good for any kind of aluminium work we want to do, and we just want to do this little bit of work here for aluminium there. To use Eduard, remember it is a lacquer based paint, so we want to put face masks on, extractor fans on, all those kind of things as well. Want to give it a good shape, make sure we get all the sediment off the bottom, right, because that's all the good stuff. And then we're just going to nicely pour this into the colour cup. We don't really need too much. Whack the lid on because it does evaporate rather quickly. We want to put our air pressure down to about 15 to 10 psi, nice and light. Let's just check how our spray pattern is, looking rather nice. And then we simply just want to start to spray this front bit here for our air intake. And as you can see, that's gone on rather nicely. Nice light coat. It does dry rather quickly, so you know we can just quickly slap on the next one here, and then go back to this one. Cut into air by just pressing down the trigger. Let's give that another coat, and that should be all good. As you can see, it's a nice aluminium type colour going on there. And then what we want to do is we want to leave this alone for the next colour what we're going to do on here. What we want to do now as well, now this has had a bit of time to dry, we just want to get off a bit of 16mm Tamiya masking tape, probably put it on the back of your hand and peel it off just to make it a little bit less tacky. And what we want to do is we just want to mask this up and keep it nice and safe. Now when it comes to masking this bit, do not worry at all. I mean, we're just generally protecting that area. Right, we're not really going to, once we put this together, we're not really going to see anything like this, so it's just a general quick mask that particular area off. Then what we want to do, our airbrush has had those lacquer based paints in there, so what I've done is I've already cleaned it out with some cellulose thinners. But what you also want to do is probably, you know, blast through a bit of airbrush cleaner and sort of clean that out, just so as you know, you get your airbrush starting to think acrylic based paints again. And then what we're going to do, going to get some of our homebrew thinners. I've got it in this an old Vallejo bottle here, but basically go to the Genesis Models website under tutorials, homebrew thinners, really good thinners, very cheap, easy to make. Definitely recommend that because I literally use this all the time now. So we're going to pour in just a bit in here. We don't need a lot of this paint, so we just want a little bit in there. But what we basically want is a 50-50 mix. Let's give this pot a shake. We want a 50-50 mix of extra acrylics XA1117 interior green, and that's FS34151. So we want to pour this into about a 50-50 mix. This is a nice interior green. Ooh, that might be a bit too much of paint gone in there, but let's just see how it goes. Just trying to find my old faithful mixing paintbrush. We're just going to mix that in with a paintbrush, so we make sure it all gets nicely mixed in, making sure we put in our thinners first before the paint. We've got a bit of a drip going on just down here as well, so we just want to get that up because we don't want that going down, dripping down to the needle end and then blasting off. So let's just check our flow. We're going to have to put our air pressure back up to about 20 as well, because it was at about 12 for our L class. And what we want to do is at our bottom area just here, this is where our landing gear is going to go. We just want to put on the first quick light misty coat, get under there as well, and then back here as well we have interior green as well, just there. Nice quick first light coat like we should do all the time, and then we've got this our wheel well, front wheel well here, and we can come in and get this interior green as well. So I'm just going to build up the coats on this interior green. Right then, as you can see, I have masked up just across there, which is now protecting our interior green just underneath there. Now what I want to bring your attention to is some new paints that I've had in, and that is the Aka range of paints, and this is a nice Russian manufactured, branded, made set of paints, which makes it quite unique in the sense that it is Russian kind of through and through. Apparently the company that makes and designs these colours, literally the one place where they have all the accurate colour matchings for all the different Russian aircrafts. Even the Russian Air Force actually goes to them for like to check that their colours are right and everything. So what we have here is some quite very accurate paint colours for Russian aircraft, which makes it perfect for this Mig-21. So I've got them in specifically for this. What we're going to have a little look at to just start off with these paints, we'll really have a better look at them as we go through, but we're looking at emerald green. It's that nice interior sort of green that you get inside those Russian cockpits, and to be honest with you, from what I've read elsewhere and from what I can see now, you know, it is the best matching colour for, you know, that nice Russian emerald green that you get in there. So how do they spray? Well, for a start off, thinners. I've gone off and I've used the Genesis Models homebrew thinners. Absolutely thinned very nicely, 50-50 mix, and you know what, they spray really nice actually. I'm not getting any sort of problems. It really sprays out quite smooth, nice spray pattern. It seems to have a good coverage as well, which is rather nice, but hopefully, as you can see, it is just spraying really nice. Right, and we want to get our cockpit here as well, our resin cockpit that's been nicely primed up. Let's get that first coat going on in there. Now, I don't know what it is, but there's looking at the camera here, and actually what I'm seeing with the Mark 1 eyeball, green seems to come out a little bit sort of slightly different on camera, but with a Mark 1 eyeball, trust me, this is looking pretty damn spot on, if you ask me. And as you can see, the coverage is really good as well. I mean, I've sprayed that on and it's really sort of given us some really nice coverage going on there. Maybe quickly just come back to this inside of our cockpit area. And just on top as well, doesn't hurt either. So there you go, as you can see, looks like a really nice set of paints there. They also do a faded version as well, emerald green, but faded, so if you wanted to kind of weather it up with some spray, you could as well, but we're going to get all sorts of kind of washes and stuff probably in these cockpits. So I'm just going to like go off and spray up all my bits emerald green.